it's Luke Lamperdig, Team Soudal Quick-Step.
It's been way more of a successful start with the team than I could have imagined.
21 years old and you're in your first season here.
If you have confidence but a bit less shape, you can still win races.
And Luke Lampertig will take the lead of this race.
In 2-3 years, I can race some of the biggest classics and hopefully fight for victory. I would love to do the Roubaix, the Flanders, all of those Belgian races.
Soudal Quick-Step, they're in dominant form at the moment.
If I'm competing for victory in these races, I'm happy.
Starting off 2024 with Soudal Quick-Step, is it more than you could have ever imagined?
Yeah, I think it's been a better start than I could have imagined. I mean, I took more time in the under-23s to try to hopefully hit the ground running, but obviously it's a big jump and it's a big team to come into, and I think it's been way more of a successful start with the team than I could have imagined before the season, for sure.
What do you mean more time in the under-23s to get started than?
Yeah, I think nowadays most guys are doing, you see a lot of guys turning pro at 19, 18. Some guys go straight from junior, some guys do 1 year under 23. Me personally, I did 3 years to try to really be at the top level of under 23s, hoping I was more prepared to turn pro and be successful at the start, because I think a rider like me who wants to sprint and do the classics, I think you need to continue the winning mentality, and so much of what we do is confidence. It's not always about just the shape. You can't, I think as a climber you know really how you're going based off of you can go do how many watts per kilo on a climb, but I think as a sprinter you really need confidence as well, and if you have confidence but a bit less shape, you can still win races. So I think for me that's always been really important, and yeah, that's why it's been, I think, nice to have such a good start. Then you can keep the ball rolling, especially in a team that the environment is so high and everybody wants to win. I think you already have that before the season in the camps.
How big is that confidence? Because that's something that, what have you seen as a 21-year-old? Because that's something that we see with the experienced guys like Ewan and Cavendish talking about getting those wins. And now, how it's so much more for the mentality.
Yeah, I think being successful as a team, and then personally I've had some good rides. I still haven't gotten a win, but we won the first race with the team with me and Paul, and I think that from there already set the mentality that we can step into the team and perform in some of the races that we do, and already then you have the other guys in the team believe in you. Everybody backs you more when they're riding for you and they actually believe you can win. If you have a guy riding the front all day but doesn't really believe you can win, it's hard. It's hard to do your job when you don't believe the other guys can win. But when we showed that right away, I think then the whole team believes in you, the staff believe in you, and everybody, of course they already did in the team. It's an environment where they already really did believe in us, and I think that's why it is possible. But for sure, when you do perform, then everybody believes that little bit more. You believe in yourself. You have that bit of confidence, and you don't really have pressure like, oh, I've come into this team and now I've had half a season, I haven't done anything, I need to do something. And I think as a young guy, you always want to be successful in a new team and in a new environment. Even when I think even the big pros that change teams when they're a top rider in the world, you want to be successful in the new team to prove you can still be successful in a new environment. And so I think already doing that's been really nice.
I guess you're anxious to get that first win. I mean, you look through the Palmars of your career before you turned professional. This year, 2024, you've had quite a few wins along the way. So you're itching to get that first win. You've been close. You've been knocking on the door. How important is it for you to get that win, do you think, already early on in your pro career?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, a win speaks a lot more than, now I've been second or third in quite a few races this season, and for sure you want to get the win. You're always there, but when Paul wins and I'm second, it feels like a win. When we win in the team, I think it's really good. And yeah, of course, I mean, for me, it would be nice to get a win, but I can already feel a bit of that pressure come off knowing that I am so close. You already feel like, oh, you're almost there. It's not a win, but you're close enough that it's not I'm not way off the mark. So I think it will come, and you also can't force it. I think when you try to force things in cycling, it can be a slippery slope, and you have to be careful with that as well.
What's your background? How did you first get into cycling? What was your first inspiration to race the bike?
Yeah, my first experience, so I raced motocross when I was younger, so I was always motocross when I was super young. That's what my dad did. I have a brother that's a year and a half older, and we both did motocross always growing up, and I rode a bike in the yard, and we had the typical black ramps you can buy from Walmart in the US, and I always rode that stuff. And then I started riding a road bike to train a bit for motocross, and a mountain bike when I was 10 or 11. And then from there's a local junior team in our area, Team Swift, that I joined, and started doing some races and riding and doing more and more as I grew up. And so from then I was, just fell in love with the bike and started racing bikes. I made a decision to do cycling instead of motocross, and that was it from there. Yeah, the rest is kind of, now I'm here.
What was your first win as a kid racing? Did you start racing crits when you were pretty young?
Yeah, the first Actually, the first ever crit I did when I was 10 is Cherry Pie Crit. It's like the season opener in California. Everyone always does it. It's been a well-known thing for a long time, and that was my first win wearing arm warmers as leg warmers. You know, I was so small wearing arm warmers as leg warmers, and I won my first ever crit I did then. And yeah, racing with my brother and another kid who I grew up with, Isaiah Chasu, was my best friend growing up, and yeah, super cool to do that, I guess, so young.
And how did the deal with Quick-Step come together? I know you stayed with Andrew and Trinity for an extra season for that experience. How did the deal come together with Quick-Step? How was that contact made?
Yeah, I've had contact with them since 2021 when I did a camp, and then after that, when I was able to actually win, and I think Patrick believed I could win some races, then I had more contact with the team this last season, and for me, I was lucky to have some option to where I wanted to turn pro, and I think you see the history of the team and the guys that have come through the team and become some of the biggest names in the sport as sprinters, classics riders, and all of that. And so I think that for me was something that really drew me towards the team, and my gut feeling was always I wanted to go to Quick-Step kind of. And so I think I just stuck with that gut feeling and believed that it was the best place for me to turn pro. And then there's also the connection with Specialized, which me from California, I've been with Specialized now for 5 or 6 years, and so it's also really nice to be able to stay connected with them and still ride Specialized and use their equipment that I've used for so long, and they've supported me now through juniors and under 23s, so to stay with them was also part of the decision.
You know, right now the U.S. kind of racing domestic scene's kind of dead, right? Tour of California's closed, all these other races are closed. How did you come through the system? You made it on your own, it almost sounds like.
Yeah, a bit. I mean, the national team was a massive help. The national team is who first brought me to Europe and did all of that, and I think they were the biggest support in making it possible to do it. And then I went to Trinity, which was a bit different than most Americans. I was the first American to go to Trinity, and it was still a super easy environment. They had great support and English speaking, so it was still, I think, a lot easier than if you were to go to a French DN1 team or something like this. I didn't completely carve my own path, but it turned into one of the best Devo teams in the world, from just being kind of a startup when I first joined to being one of the best my last year as an under 23. So I think, yeah, it was a bit different than most riders, but it was still not the most unique pathway, but for sure one that really worked for me, and I wouldn't change any of it really.
Well, just following up on that, how difficult was it to make the connection with Trinity, because that was your gateway to what is now Soudal Quick-Step? And for those that don't know, what is Trinity and how big of an amateur team is that?
Yeah, I think my connection actually with Trinity was, Andrew McQuaid is my agent. He runs the team, but then also they were a smaller team at the time. It wasn't really a team I'd considered when I was a junior, and then Specialized had reached out to me and said, hey, we're gonna really back this team and try to make it one of the best teams. I don't know if you're interested or where you're at with everything, but it is going to be one of the best teams, we think, and we really want to put some support behind it if you're interested. And at that time I was it was later in the season, and I was like, yeah, for sure. It's something I hadn't raced the whole year. It was COVID year, and I was like, for sure, I think it'd be something that I could be interested in and try it for a year and see. You know, you never know till you try it, and I did my first year and it was super good, so then I continued with them for 3 years.
There are some important riders that have come through Trinity as well. Name those riders. I think one that comes to mind right away is Tom Pidcock.
Yeah, Pidcock is obviously a lot of the reason the team started, and then from there there's also been a lot of other guys who have turned pro. Ben Turner, I was on the team with, Tom Gloag, Ben Healy. There's loads of guys who have turned pro. I think last year we had 5 guys go to the World Tour from the team in 2023, turning pro in 2024. And I think in a Devo team, if you have 5 guys turn pro, you can say it's a successful year. I mean, if you have 1, you've already had a success. And when we had 5 from a team like Trinity, it's super special to have that many guys for the team turn pro. So for them, they've been only more and more guys every year turning pro, and that's the main goal of the team. So it's been super successful.
I know you get some opportunities and some races this year, but looking in the crystal ball, Luke, where do you want to be racing in 2-3 years, performing at the highest levels? What races do you want to target?
I think my gut feeling says I want to do the classics, but it's hard to say right now. But ideally, in 2-3 years, I can race some of the biggest classics and hopefully fight for victory in those races.
The Roubaix, the Flanders?
I would love to, yeah. I would love to do the Roubaix, the Flanders, all of those Belgian races. I think I'll start this year with some of the smaller ones and start learning the roads of Belgium and really get to know them, and hopefully be there for a lot of the recons with the team, and then hopefully start to race them in the coming years as I progress more as a rider.
Was that part of the reason, I think you hinted on that earlier, for joining Soudal Quick-Step? Because if you want to go that route, there's probably no better team to go that route than with Soudal Quick-Step.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best teams. I mean, in the past they've had the best classics team in the world, you could say, and they've been one of the top teams in the world for years and years. And so I think I think this is super important, having that team environment, and the directors know the classics, and the team at heart is they love Belgium, they love the classics, and they know how to do these races. And I think so much of it is knowing the races and knowing how to do them and having the team around you. And for sure, yeah, they've always been successful, and now there's some change in the team with GC as well. But at heart, they'll always be good in the classics, if you ask me. So to be on this team as a neo-pro and learn the classics here is, yeah, a dream.
When we sit here in 5 years' time, what do you want to have under your belt at that point?
Yeah, I think in 5 years' time, if I were to be happy, I'd say if I can start being competitive in the top races in the world, I'd be happy in 5 years. If I'm competing for victory in these races, I'm happy.